A Japanese nurse treated her first black American patient after the war. She had been taught to fear him, trained to see him as a monster. But when he woke, wounded and alone, his first words shattered everything she believed. One act of kindness became her crime. American officers punished her for caring. Soldiers mocked him for existing. The world demanded they stay apart. Then came the explosion. Flames. Chaos. A choice that would expose every lie. The soldier who was hated most saved the man who hated him. When the ship pulled away from the harbor, what did they carry with them across an ocean that would keep them apart forever? And can a single moment of courage change two people when the whole world says it shouldn't? Location and time: Yokohama Prefecture, Japan, U.S. Army Field Hospital number 92. Early morning, late October 1945. Nurse Akiko Mori stood in the supply tent, counting bandages for the third time that morning. Her fingers moved slowly. Her mind wandered back to the air raids, the sirens, the months when survival meant hiding in darkness. The war had ended 2 months ago, but the world still felt broken. She heard the jeep before she saw it. The engine growled through the hospital gates. Soldiers jumped from the back, shouting orders. They carried someone on a stretcher. Akiko stepped outside. The autumn wind bit at her cheeks. She pulled her thin nurse's coat tighter. "Get a nurse over here," an American sergeant barked. The head nurse pointed at Akiko. "You, go help." Akiko hurried forward. Her breath came short. She had treated wounded Americans before. But something felt different about the silence surrounding this patient. The soldiers lifted the stretcher carefully. Akiko saw the injured man for the first time. He was black. She froze. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory. The propaganda posters from the war. The stories about monsters in American uniforms. She had never seen a black man in person before. "Ma'am, he needs treatment now," the medic said. His voice was urgent but cold. Akiko forced her legs to move. She followed the stretcher into the ward. The patient's face was covered in bruises. His leg bent at a wrong angle. Blood soaked through his torn uniform. "Private Elijah Brooks," the medic said flatly. "Transport accident. Fractured leg, possible concussion." 2 white officers stood near the entrance. They whispered to each other. One laughed quietly. Neither moved to help. Akiko gathered scissors and gauze. Her hands trembled. She cut away the fabric around his wounded leg. The skin beneath was swollen and dark purple. She cleaned the wound as gently as she could. He did not wake. His breathing was steady but shallow. The officers left without a word. The medic handed her a clipboard and walked away. Akiko stood alone, beside the sleeping soldier. The sun began to set outside the window. Long shadows stretched across the floor. The head nurse appeared in the doorway. "You will monitor him overnight." Akiko looked up. "Why me?" The older woman's expression was unreadable. "Because no one else wants the assignment." She left before Akiko could respond. Akiko pulled a wooden chair beside the cot. She sat down carefully. Private Brooks's face looked peaceful, despite the pain he must be feeling. She studied his features. There was nothing monstrous about him, nothing at all. She folded her hands in her lap and waited for nightfall. The ward was dark. Blackout curtains blocked the moonlight. A single oil lamp flickered on the supply table. Akiko dozed in her chair. Her head drooped forward. A sound woke her. Private Brooks stirred. His eyes opened slowly. He looked around in confusion. Pain crossed his face. He tried to sit up and gasped. Akiko stood quickly. She moved toward him. Her heart pounded. She did not know what to expect. He turned his head. He saw her standing there. Fear flashed in his eyes. Then something shifted. He relaxed slightly. His breathing slowed. "You don't have to be afraid of me," he said quietly. His voice was gentle, tired. Nothing in it threatened her. Akiko stared at him. The words sank in slowly. She realized she had been afraid. He had seen it in her face. Shame burned in her chest. "I am a nurse," she managed in broken English. "You are hurt." He nodded slowly. "Yes, ma'am. Legs pretty bad." She brought him water. He drank gratefully. She checked his bandage. It was still secure. They sat in awkward silence. She did not know what else to say. Her English was too limited. The door swung open. A white sergeant entered. He looked at Private Brooks with disgust. "You causing trouble again, Brooks?" Private Brooks shook his head. "No, sir. Just woke up." "Better not be." The sergeant glanced at Akiko. "Keep him quiet." He left without waiting for a response. Akiko felt something cold settle in her stomach. The sergeant's tone had been cruel. Private Brooks was injured. He could barely move, yet he was treated as a problem. She looked at him. He stared at the ceiling. His jaw was tight. "I am sorry," she whispered. He turned to her. Surprise showed in his eyes. "Not your fault," he said softly. Silence returned. The lamp continued to flicker. Outside, distant footsteps echoed through the compound. Private Brooks closed his eyes again. But before he drifted back to sleep, he spoke one word in Japanese. "Arigato." "Thank you." Akiko's breath caught. She had not expected that. She had not expected kindness from someone she had been taught to fear. The night stretched long. Dawn was still hours away. But something had shifted in the darkness. Something small. Something fragile. Something that might survive. Akiko sat on a bench in the mess tent. She ate her breakfast slowly. Rationed rice. Watery tea. A single pickled plum. Around her, the other nurses whispered. She heard fragments of their conversation. The Negro soldier. Why did they send him here? Akiko had to stay with him all night. She kept her eyes down. She did not want to join their gossip. She did not know what to think yet. The head nurse approached. "Mori-san, return to the ward. The American patient needs his bandage changed." Akiko nodded. She stood and carried her tray to the washing station. The walk back to the ward felt longer than usual. Her stomach twisted with nervousness. She did not understand why. Private Brooks was awake when she entered. He sat up slightly. Pain showed in his movements, but he tried to hide it. "Good morning," he said. "Good morning," she replied carefully. She gathered fresh bandages and antiseptic. She knelt beside his cot. She began unwrapping the old gauze. The wound looked better. Less swelling. No infection yet. The door burst open. A white lieutenant strode in. His uniform was crisp. His face was hard. He looked at Private Brooks with contempt. "This the one frightening the locals?" the lieutenant said loudly. Akiko's hands stopped moving. She looked up. "He is my patient," she said. Her voice was quiet but clear. "He has frightened no one." The lieutenant turned to her. His eyes narrowed. "You speaking out of turn, nurse?" She met his gaze. Fear made her hand shake, but something deeper made her stand firm. "He is injured. He cannot walk. He has done nothing wrong." The room fell silent. Even Private Brooks stared at her in shock. The lieutenant's jaw clenched. "We'll see about that." He turned and left. His boots echoed down the hallway. Akiko's legs felt weak. She sat back on her heels. What had she done? Private Brooks spoke softly. "You didn't have to do that." She looked at him. His expression was unreadable. Gratitude mixed with worry. "You are my patient," she repeated. This time in Japanese, then again in English. "My responsibility." He nodded slowly. "Thank you." The other nurses appeared in the doorway. They stared at Akiko. Some looked impressed. Others looked horrified. One of them whispered to another. The words carried across the ward. "She just made a terrible mistake." Akiko finished wrapping the new bandage. Her hands moved automatically. Her mind was somewhere else. Somewhere frightening. The morning sun climbed higher outside. But inside the ward, darkness gathered. Akiko stood in front of Major Peterson's desk. The American administrator sat behind a pile of paperwork. His expression was stern. "Nurse Mori," he began. His Japanese was functional but harsh. I received a report about your behavior. Akiko kept her eyes forward. She said nothing. You spoke disrespectfully to Lieutenant Harris. You defended a colored soldier. I defended my patient, Akiko said quietly. Major Peterson leaned back in his chair. Let me be clear. We have rules here. Fraternization is not permitted, even with colored troops. I only provided medical care. Lieutenant Harris believes otherwise. Akiko's chest tightened. She wanted to argue. She wanted to explain, but she knew it would not matter. Major Peterson shuffled papers. Your insubordination requires consequences. She waited for dismissal, for punishment, for humiliation. Effective immediately, you are assigned full-time care of Private Brooks. Akiko blinked. She had not expected this. Until he is transferred or discharged, you will be responsible for his treatment. You will monitor him, feed him, change his bandages, answer for his behavior. The major's eyes were cold. Consider it your punishment. He waved his hand. Dismissed. Akiko left the office. Her mind spun. She had tried to help Private Brooks. Now she was trapped with him. The hallway seemed longer on the way out. Each step felt heavier. Other nurses passed by. They did not meet her eyes. They knew what had happened. Word traveled fast in the hospital. She reached the courtyard between buildings. The autumn air was cool. She stopped and took a breath. What would Private Brooks think? Would he blame her? Would he feel guilty? She did not know which was worse, being punished for showing kindness, or having that kindness turn into a burden for them both. A crow landed on the fence nearby. It watched her with black eyes. Then it flew away. Akiko started walking again. The ward was just ahead. Private Brooks would be waiting. She had to face him. Her punishment had become their shared fate. Akiko entered the ward slowly. Private Brooks looked up from his cot. He saw her face, and his expression changed. What happened? He asked. She moved to his bedside. She began arranging the medical supplies. Her hands moved automatically. I am your nurse now, full-time. He was quiet for a moment. They punished you. Yes, because of me. She looked at him directly. Because I spoke the truth. He shook his head. You shouldn't have done that. They'll make your life hell now. It was already difficult. She checked his pulse. His heartbeat was steady. This changes little. They fell into silence. Akiko continued her routine. She recorded his temperature. She examined his leg. The fracture was healing slowly. Private Brooks watched her work. Finally, he spoke again. My name is Elijah, not Private Brooks, just Elijah. She paused. In Japan, using first names was intimate, personal. But perhaps Americans were different. Akiko, she replied. My name is Akiko. He smiled slightly. It was the first real smile she had seen from him. Nice to officially meet you, Akiko. Nice to meet you, Elijah. The formality felt strange, but it also felt right. They were no longer just nurse and patient. They were two people caught in an unfair situation. Tell me about Georgia, she said suddenly. She did not know why she asked. Elijah's smile faded. It's complicated, beautiful land, cruel people. At least some of them. Japan is the same now, beautiful and cruel. He nodded. Guess the war did that everywhere. My family is gone, Akiko said quietly. The bombings took them. I'm sorry. Your family? Still there. My mama writes when she can. Letters take weeks to arrive. They talked for an hour. Small pieces of their lives. Nothing too deep, nothing too painful. Just enough to remind them both that they were human. The sun moved across the sky. Long shadows appeared on the floor. Akiko pulled a small bundle from her coat pocket. 2 sweet potatoes. She had taken them from her family's old garden plot that morning. You must be hungry, she said. Elijah stared at the potatoes. You'll get in trouble for this. Perhaps. She placed them on his blanket. But you need to eat. An orderly passed by the door. He saw the exchange. His eyebrows raised. He said nothing, but his expression was clear. This would be reported. Elijah picked up 1 potato. He bit into it carefully. Gratitude filled his face. Akiko watched him eat. She felt something unfamiliar. Not quite happiness, not quite peace, but close. Akiko stood in the long queue outside the supply depot. Dawn had just broken. Cold mist hung in the air. Japanese civilians and hospital staff waited together for their daily rations. The woman behind her whispered to her neighbor. The words carried forward clearly. "That's the nurse, the one with the foreign soldier. I heard she brings him special food. Shameful. After everything they did to us." Akiko kept her face neutral. She had heard worse yesterday. She would hear worse tomorrow. Letting it pierce her heart would accomplish nothing. The line moved forward slowly. She received her portion: rice, dried fish, weak miso paste. She bowed slightly and stepped away. The walk back to the hospital took 10 minutes. Her feet ached in her worn shoes. She passed bombed-out buildings, temporary shelters, children with hollow eyes. The war had ended, but suffering continued. She reached the ward. Elijah was trying to sit up by himself. His face showed determination mixed with pain. "You should not move without help," Akiko said sharply. He looked up. Guilt crossed his features. "I need to get stronger. Can't lay here forever. Your leg needs time. Time's a luxury I don't have." She set down her bag. She moved to his side. "Then we will do this properly." She showed him breathing exercises, ways to strengthen his core without putting pressure on his leg. He followed her instructions carefully. They worked together for 30 minutes. By the end, sweat covered his forehead, but he looked satisfied. "You're a tough teacher," he said. "You are a stubborn student." He laughed. The sound was brief but genuine. It filled the empty ward with unexpected warmth. A Japanese clerk appeared in the doorway. He held a clipboard. His expression was uncomfortable. "Mori-san, I must inform you. There have been complaints." Akiko straightened. "What complaints?" "About improper closeness with the patient." Her stomach dropped. "We have done nothing improper." The clerk would not meet her eyes. "I am only delivering the message. Please be more careful." He left quickly. His footsteps echoed away. Elijah's jaw tightened. This is getting worse. Akiko did not respond. She gathered the medical supplies. Her hands moved mechanically. Her mind raced. How could she provide proper care while maintaining enough distance to satisfy gossips? It was impossible. Care required closeness. Healing required trust. She looked at Elijah. He was watching her with worry. Not for himself, for her. That worry told her everything she needed to know. Whatever they were building here mattered. It mattered enough to fight for. Even if fighting meant enduring whispers and warnings. Even if it meant standing alone. She met his gaze. She nodded slightly. A silent promise. He nodded back. He understood. "I'm sorry, I can't assist with that request." Heard he thinks he's special now. Getting personal treatment. Akiko kept walking. Her face burned. Her heart pounded, but stopping would only make it worse. She reached Elijah's ward. She closed the door behind her. Her hands shook as she set down the supplies. Elijah noticed immediately. "What happened?" "Nothing." "Akiko." She looked at him. His eyes were kind but firm. He knew she was lying. "They said things in the hallway. About me? About both of us." Elijah's expression darkened. "I'm causing you too much trouble. Request a different assignment." "No." "Yes, this isn't fair to you." "Nothing is fair." She moved to his bedside. She began checking his wounds. "Nothing has been fair since the war began. Perhaps before then, too." He was quiet while she worked. She could feel his frustration, his guilt, his helplessness. "Is it always this way?" she asked suddenly. "In America? People judging you?" "Yes. Every day. Every place." "That must be exhausting." "It is." He paused. "But you learn to carry it. You don't have a choice." Akiko finished wrapping the new bandage. She sat in the chair beside his cot. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "In Japan, I was taught you were monsters," she said quietly. "The propaganda showed terrible images. We were told to be afraid. And now? Now I see the real monsters wear many faces. Some of them wear uniforms I once respected." Elijah reached out slowly. His hand hovered near hers. He did not touch her. That would be too dangerous, but the gesture was clear. "Thank you," he said, "for seeing me. Thank you for helping me see." The door opened without warning. Lieutenant Harris stood in the entrance. His eyes swept the room. He looked at their proximity. At the moment of connection he had interrupted. He said nothing, but his expression promised consequences. He turned and left. Akiko's hands started shaking again. Elijah pulled his hand back quickly. "He's going to report this." Elijah said, "I know. What will you do?" Akiko stood. She straightened her uniform. She met Elijah's worried gaze. "I will continue caring for my patient. Nothing more, nothing less." But they both knew the truth. In a world poisoned by hatred, simple care looked dangerous. Kindness looked forbidden. And they were running out of time to prove otherwise. Lieutenant Harris found Akiko during her afternoon break. She was washing her hands at the outdoor pump. He approached from behind. "Nurse Mori." She turned. Water dripped from her fingers. "Yes, Lieutenant?" A word of advice. His voice was low but threatening. "Colored soldiers don't know their place. Stop giving Brooks ideas." "Ideas about what?" "That he's equal. That he deserves special treatment. That he matters." Akiko felt anger rise in her chest. She forced it down. "He is a patient. All patients matter." Harris stepped closer. "You're playing a dangerous game. Keep it up and you'll lose everything." He walked away before she could respond. Akiko dried her hands on her apron. They were still shaking. She took several deep breaths. Then she returned to the ward. Elijah was sitting up. His leg was still immobilized, but his strength had improved. He looked at her face and frowned. "What did he say?" "It does not matter." "It does to me." She pulled a chair close. The doctor approved a short walk, outside, with supervision. Elijah's eyes widened. "Serious?" "Yes, if you feel strong enough." "I'm strong enough." She helped him stand. He leaned heavily on her shoulder. They moved slowly toward the door. Each step was careful, painful, but determined. They emerged into the courtyard. Afternoon sunlight warmed the air. The space was empty, except for scattered rubble and broken walls. A Shinto shrine had once stood here. Now only the stone base remained. Elijah limped forward with Akiko's support. He breathed deeply. "Fresh air. I forgot what it felt like." "The shrine was beautiful once," Akiko said. "My brother prayed here before he went to war." "He didn't come back?" "No." They reached the shrine's remains. Elijah touched the stone carefully. "I'm sorry." "I am sorry too, for all of it, for believing lies about men who look different than me. You didn't know better. That is no excuse." They stood together in silence. The sun moved behind thin clouds. Shadows shifted across the broken ground. Akiko glanced back toward the hospital. An American corporal stood near the building's entrance. He was watching them. His expression was dark and disapproving. She looked away quickly, but it was too late. He had seen everything. The closeness, the quiet conversation, the shared moment. He turned and walked rapidly toward the administrative building. Akiko's stomach twisted. "We should go back." "What's wrong?" "Someone saw us. Someone who will report." Elijah followed her gaze. The corporal had already disappeared inside. "Damn." They moved back to the ward. Each step felt heavier than before. The brief moment of peace was over. The machinery of prejudice had started moving again. And this time, it would not stop with warnings. Akiko arrived at the ward earlier than usual. The morning air was cold. Her breath made small clouds as she walked. The other nurses did not greet her. They turned away when she entered the supply room. The head nurse handed her a clean apron without speaking. Something had changed overnight. She carried fresh bandages to Elijah's cot. He was awake. His expression was troubled. "They talked to you?" he asked. "Not yet, but they will." She began her morning examination. His pulse was normal. His leg showed continued improvement. The bruising on his face had faded to yellow and green. Major Peterson appeared in the doorway. He carried a folder under his arm. His face was stern. "Nurse Mori, a word." Akiko followed him into the hallway. He did not invite her to sit. He simply opened the folder. Corporal Davies filed a report. "He observed you and Private Brooks in the courtyard, alone, engaged in personal conversation. We were walking, for medical purposes. The doctor approved it." The doctor approved supervised exercise, not intimate discussions. Akiko felt her jaw tighten. "We discussed nothing inappropriate." "That's not how it appeared." Peterson closed the folder. "We're now under formal observation. Any further incidents will result in immediate dismissal." He walked away. His boots clicked against the floor. Akiko returned to the ward. Her legs felt weak. Her hands were cold, despite her gloves. Elijah looked at her. "Bad? Yes. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing." She checked his bandage more roughly than intended. "None of this is your fault. It's my face that makes it a problem. My skin." She met his eyes. "It is their hatred that makes it a problem, not you." The morning passed slowly. Akiko maintained her duties. She spoke little. Other patients in nearby cots watched her with curiosity, some with pity. Through the window she saw Japanese civilians gathering near the gate. They stared toward the hospital. Whispers had spread beyond the compound. A small boy pointed. An old woman shook her head and pulled him away. Akiko turned from the window. Elijah was watching her. "They talk about you in town?" he asked. "Yes." "About us?" "There is no us. There is only a nurse caring for a patient." But even as she said it, she knew it was a lie. Something had grown between them. Something fragile. Something that defied the rules both their worlds had made. The head nurse entered the ward. She gestured for Akiko to follow. "You're needed in the supply room." Akiko glanced back at Elijah. His expression was resigned, worried. He knew this was only the beginning. She followed the head nurse down the corridor. Each step felt heavier, each breath harder. The observation had begun. Every moment would be scrutinized. Every word weighed. Every gesture judged. They were being watched, and watchers always found what they were looking for. The supply room was small and dim. Shelves lined the walls. Boxes of bandages, bottles of antiseptic. Everything was rationed. Everything was precious. Akiko counted inventory while 2 American guards stood near the door. They had been assigned that morning. They watched her constantly. She tried to ignore them. She focused on her task, but their presence was suffocating. She returned to Elijah's ward with fresh supplies. The guards followed. They positioned themselves just outside the door, close enough to hear, close enough to see. Elijah noticed them immediately. His jaw tightened. Akiko began changing his bandage. She worked in silence. The guards shifted their feet. One of them coughed deliberately. "Can I tell you something?" Elijah asked quietly. "Yes. Back home, I rode segregated buses, sat in the back, drank from colored-only fountains." Akiko's hands paused. "Why?" "Because that's the law in Georgia, in most of the South." "That is wrong." "It is. But wrong doesn't matter when wrong has power." She resumed wrapping the bandage. "Here, you fought for America. You wore the uniform. Didn't change anything. We fought in separate units, ate in separate mess halls. Came home to the same hatred." One of the guards laughed quietly. He whispered something to his partner. Both of them smirked. Elijah's hands curled into fists, but he kept his voice steady. "You know what's funny? I survived the war, survived the Pacific, survived everything. Then I get hurt in a simple truck accident. Accidents do not care about survival, Akiko said. Neither does racism. She finished the bandage. She recorded notes on his chart. The guards watched every movement. They were waiting for something, anything to report. A nurse rushed into the ward. She looked frantic. "Mori-san, Lieutenant Harris wants to see you, now." Akiko set down her clipboard. She looked at Elijah. His expression showed fear. Not for himself, for her. "I will return," she said. "Will you?" She did not answer. She could not promise what she did not know. The guards followed her down the hallway. Their boots made harsh sounds against the floor. She felt trapped between them, a prisoner in everything but name. Lieutenant Harris's office was at the end of the corridor. The door was open. He sat behind his desk. His face showed satisfaction. "Nurse Mori, come in." She entered. The guards remained outside. Harris gestured to a chair. She did not sit. "I've been reviewing reports," he said. "Your conduct continues to be inappropriate." "I have done nothing inappropriate." "You spend hours alone with a colored soldier. You bring him personal items. You engage in intimate conversation. I provide medical care. You provide something else entirely." He leaned forward. "Let me be clear. Improper relations with Negro personnel will not be tolerated, even perceived relations." Akiko's hands shook with anger, but she kept her voice level. "Private Brooks is my assigned patient. I am following orders." "Then follow them at a proper distance." He waved his hand. Dismissed. She left the office. Her face burned. Her chest felt tight. The guards escorted her back to the ward. Elijah looked up as she entered. He saw everything in her expression. "It's getting worse," he said. "Yes." "You should request reassignment." "No." "Akiko." "No." They fell silent. The guards watched from the doorway. Their presence poisoned the air, made every word dangerous, every glance suspect. Evening came slowly. The sun set behind the mountains. Shadows grew long and cold. Akiko prepared to leave for the night. She gathered her supplies. She avoided looking at Elijah directly. But as she reached the door, she spoke quietly, barely a whisper. "I will see you tomorrow." His response was equally soft. "Thank you." The guards did not react. Perhaps they had not heard. Or perhaps they were simply waiting, building their case piece by piece. Akiko stood before Lieutenant Harris's desk again. This time, Major Peterson was present. Both men looked grave. "Nurse Mori," Peterson began, "this situation has escalated beyond acceptable limits." She waited. Her heart pounded. Her hands were clasped tightly behind her back. Harris spoke next. "Multiple witnesses report continued inappropriate behavior, extended time with Private Brooks, personal conversations, emotional attachment. I am his assigned nurse. You assigned me to him. We assigned you to provide medical care, not companionship. Medical care requires trust. Trust requires conversation." Peterson's expression hardened. "Let me be direct. Any form of relationship between Japanese staff and Negro troops is prohibited, even the appearance of such relationships. There is no relationship. Your actions suggest otherwise." Harris pulled out a paper. "We have statements. You brought him food from outside. You shared personal stories. You walked with him in private areas. All of that was appropriate care. It was inappropriate fraternization." Harris set down the paper. "Further violations will result in immediate termination." The word hung in the air. Termination. Dismissal. The loss of her only source of income, her only purpose since her family died. "Do you understand?" Peterson asked. "Yes." "Then maintain proper distance. Provide only essential care. No personal interaction. No private conversations. Nurses will be present during all treatments." Akiko's voice came out strained. "That will interfere with his recovery." "That's not your concern anymore." Harris stood. Your concern is following orders, nothing else." She was dismissed without another word. The walk back to the ward felt endless. Each step required conscious effort. Her vision blurred at the edges. She entered the ward. Elijah was sitting up. He took one look at her face and knew. What did they say? She moved mechanically to his bedside. 2 other nurses had been assigned to shadow her. They stood near the door, watching, recording. "We must maintain distance," she said formally. "Only essential medical care." Elijah's expression crumpled. "They threatened you?" "Yes." "Then do what they say. I can't let you lose everything because of me." She began checking his vital signs. Her hands moved automatically. Her mind was somewhere far away. "Your pulse is elevated," she noted clinically, "because I'm angry. Anger will slow healing." "How can I not be angry?" His voice rose. "They're punishing you for showing basic human decency." One of the shadowing nurses made a note on her clipboard. Akiko's chest felt tight. She could not speak freely, could not express what she felt. The walls had ears. The shadows had eyes. She finished her examination in silence. She recorded the results. She prepared to leave. "Wait," Elijah said. She paused, but she did not turn around. "I'm sorry for all of it." She looked back at him. Their eyes met for one brief moment. In that moment, she tried to communicate everything words could not say. Then she left. The shadow nurses followed. Outside, the sky was gray. Winter was coming. The cold would settle into their bones, into their hearts. But the coldest thing was not the weather. It was the system that made kindness criminal, that made humanity a violation. Akiko walked to the nurses' quarters. Her feet moved automatically. Her mind was numb. She had tried to do what was right, and right had become wrong. Good had become forbidden. The war had taught her many things, but this lesson was the cruelest. Some battles could not be won with courage. Some injustices could not be fixed with will. Some prisons had no walls, only rules. And rules were stronger than any weapon. 2 days passed under constant supervision. Akiko provided only essential care. She spoke only when necessary. The distance between her and Elijah grew with each silent hour. The shadow nurses recorded everything: timing, procedures, words, glances. Nothing was private. On the 3rd day, the doctor approved another supervised walk. But this time, 2 orderlies accompanied them. They stayed close, listening, watching. Elijah walked with a crutch now. His leg had healed enough for limited weight. Progress was visible, but it felt hollow under the circumstances. They reached the courtyard. The Shinto shrine remnant stood unchanged, eternal in its destruction. "Tell me about your brother," Elijah said quietly. The orderlies moved closer. Akiko hesitated, then decided truth could not be punished. His name was Takeshi. He was 19. He believed in honor, in duty. Where did he die? Burma. We received the notice in spring. My mother died of grief 1 month later. My father followed before summer ended. Elijah stopped walking. He looked at the shrine base. "I'm sorry, truly. War takes everything, even from the winners." One of the orderlies coughed, a warning to keep conversations brief. They continued walking slowly. The autumn sun was warm. It felt wrong that beauty still existed, that seasons still changed while so much remained broken. "Do you think it gets better?" Elijah asked. "Eventually?" "I do not know. I hope so. Hope's dangerous, gets you through today, kills you tomorrow. Without hope, we are already dead." They circled back toward the ward entrance. The walk had taken 15 minutes. It felt both too long and too short. As they approached the door, Elijah stumbled slightly. His crutch slipped on loose gravel. Akiko reached out instinctively to steady him. Her hand touched his arm for 3 seconds, maybe 4. The orderlies immediately made notes. Akiko pulled back quickly, but the damage was done. Physical contact. Witnessed, recorded. They entered the ward. Elijah settled back onto his cot. He looked exhausted, not from the walk, from the pressure, the constant scrutiny. "Thank you," he said formally. "You are welcome." The orderlies reported to the nurses' station. Their voices carried down the hall. Akiko heard fragments. Physical contact, unnecessary assistance, continued familiarity. She prepared Elijah's medication. Her hands did not shake. She had learned to control that, to hide her fear beneath practiced calm. But inside, everything was shaking. Everything was falling apart. A window looked out over the mountains. The peaks were turning white with early snow. Winter was indeed coming, cold, harsh, unforgiving. Elijah watched her from his cot. His expression was pained, guilty, helpless. She met his eyes briefly, then looked away. In the upper window of the administrative building, Lieutenant Harris stood watching the courtyard. His arms were crossed. His jaw was set. He had been there the entire time, observing, waiting, building his case. The trap was closing, and there was nowhere left to run. Akiko was summoned before dawn. She dressed quickly. Her hands moved automatically. Her mind was blank. She reported to the command office at 6 o'clock. Major Peterson sat behind his desk. Lieutenant Harris stood beside him. A Japanese administrator was also present. "Nurse Mori," Peterson began, "we've made a decision." She stood perfectly still. "Private Brooks has recovered sufficiently for transfer. He will be moved to Camp Mason today, within the hour. His leg requires continued monitoring. Camp Mason has medical facilities, inferior facilities." Harris stepped forward. "That's not your concern. Your assignment is complete." Akiko's voice remained steady. "I request permission to oversee the transfer, to ensure proper handoff of care." "Denied." Peterson's tone was final. "You're dismissed from this case, permanently." She wanted to argue, to fight, but the words died in her throat. Fighting would only make things worse. For her, for Elijah. "I understand," she said quietly. "Return to your other duties. Report to the supply office." She bowed slightly, Japanese custom mixing with defeat. Then she turned and left. The hallway was empty. Dawn light filtered through dirty windows. She walked quickly toward the ward. She had to see him, had to say something. Before they took him away, she reached the ward entrance. Orderlies were already preparing the transport. They loaded Elijah onto a stretcher despite his protests. "I can walk," he said. "Orders are orders," one orderly replied roughly. Akiko pushed through the door. "Wait!" Everyone turned. The orderlies frowned. One of them checked his clipboard. "You're not authorized to be here, ma'am. I am his primary nurse. I must verify the transfer documents." It was a weak excuse, but it bought her 30 seconds. She moved to Elijah's side. He looked up at her. Fear and resignation warred in his expression. "Where are they taking me?" he asked. "Camp Mason, 5 miles south. The colored barracks." "Yes." His jaw tightened. "Will you?" "No. I am reassigned." The orderlies lifted the stretcher. Elijah tried to sit up. They pushed him back down. "Stay still," one ordered. Akiko walked beside the stretcher as they moved toward the exit. The orderlies did not stop her. Not yet. "Your leg needs to stay elevated," she said loudly, professionally. "Change the dressing twice daily. Watch for infection." "I will." They reached the ambulance. The orderlies loaded the stretcher into the back. The metal doors clanged shut. Through the small window, Elijah's face was visible. His hand pressed against the glass. Akiko stood frozen. Her chest felt crushed. Her throat closed. The engine started. The ambulance pulled away from the hospital gates. Dust rose in its wake. She stood there long after it disappeared. Other nurses passed by. They whispered. They stared. She did not move. Finally, The head nurse appeared. "Mori-san." "The supply office is waiting." Akiko nodded slowly. She turned away from the road, away from the dust, away from everything she had tried to protect. The supply office was in the basement. Dark, cold, mindless work. A perfect place to disappear. Akiko finished her shift at 4 o'clock. Instead of returning to the nurses' quarters, she walked south, toward Camp Mason. She did not have a plan. She only knew she had to try, had to see if Elijah was receiving proper care. The road was muddy from recent rain. Her shoes were thin. Water seeped through quickly. Her feet grew numb. American jeeps passed occasionally. One splashed through a puddle near her. Dirty water soaked her uniform. The MPs inside laughed. They did not slow down. She kept walking. After 40 minutes, the camp came into view. Guard towers, barbed wire, row upon row of temporary barracks. The segregated section was visible in the far corner, separated from the main camp by additional fencing. She approached the gate. A guard stepped forward. His rifle was slung over his shoulder. "Stop there. State your business." "I am a nurse from Field Hospital 92. I need to check on a patient. No Japanese civilians allowed. I am medical staff. Don't care. Camps restricted. Turn around." She stood her ground. "Private Elijah Brooks was transferred here today. His leg requires monitoring. Then the camp medics will handle it." The guard's voice hardened. "Leave, now." Akiko looked past him. Through the gates, across the compound. The segregated barracks were distant, separate, forgotten. "Please, just let me verify." "I said leave." The guard unslung his rifle. He did not point it at her. But the threat was clear. Another guard emerged from the shack. "Problem here?" "Japanese nurse trying to get in. Says she needs to see a Negro patient." The second guard laughed. "That's rich. Tell her to get lost." Akiko's hands clenched into fists. But she was alone, powerless. 2 armed men versus 1 unarmed woman. She turned and started walking back. Her legs felt heavy. Her chest ached. Behind her, the guards. Laughter faded, but their words carried on the wind. Crazy Jap, probably in love with him. The walk back to the hospital took longer. Her feet blistered. Her uniform was still damp. Cold settled into her bones. She arrived after dark. The hospital compound was quiet. Most staff had retired for the night. She went to her small room, shared with 3 other nurses. They were already asleep. She sat on her narrow cot. She pulled the unsent letter from her pocket, the one she had written days ago, the one that explained everything she could not say aloud. She had meant to send it to Elijah, but there had been no opportunity, no way to get it past the censors. Now it was impossible. Mail to Negro barracks was not a priority. It might take weeks. It might never arrive. She held the letter against her chest, paper and ink, words that would never be read. Outside, wind rattled the windows. Winter was closer, colder, darker. She laid down without undressing. Sleep did not come, but she closed her eyes anyway, waiting for morning. For another day of pretending everything was normal, for another day of living with failure, Elijah woke on a thin cot in a crowded barracks. 20 other black soldiers slept around him. The room was cold. The walls were bare plywood. Wind whistled through gaps in the construction. His leg throbbed. The bandage needed changing, but there was no nurse, no medical supplies visible. He sat up slowly. Pain shot through his thigh. He gritted his teeth. A soldier across the room woke up. He looked at Elijah with curiosity. "You the new transfer?" "Yeah, Elijah Brooks." "Marcus Washington." "Where you from?" "Georgia." "You?" "Alabama." They talked quietly. Marcus explained the camp routine. Wake up at dawn, labor details, segregated mess hall, limited medical care. "What about nurses?" Elijah asked. Marcus laughed bitterly. "We got 1 medic, white guy, comes by maybe twice a week. Mostly we handle things ourselves." Elijah's stomach sank. Akiko had been right. The care here was inadequate. Other soldiers began waking. Some glanced at Elijah. A few nodded greeting. Most ignored him. Breakfast was served in a separate building. Thin oatmeal, weak coffee. Elijah ate slowly. His leg made it difficult to stand in the long line. After breakfast, a sergeant assigned work details. Elijah tried to explain his injury. "Can't do heavy labor, sir. Leg's fractured." The sergeant barely looked at him. "Then do light duty. Sweep the grounds. I need medical attention. Medic comes Thursday. Today's Tuesday. Wait your turn." Elijah spent the morning sweeping. Every step hurt. His crutch helped, but not enough. At lunch, he sat alone. Two soldiers approached. Both were bitter than him. Their expressions were hostile. "You the one getting special treatment at the hospital?" one asked. "What? Heard you had a personal nurse, Japanese girl." Elijah's jaw tightened. "I was injured. She was assigned to me." "Assigned, right," the soldier sneered. "Heard you thought you were special, getting cozy with her." "It wasn't personal." "Sure looked personal." The other soldier leaned in. "You make us all look bad, acting uppity. Making the white officers think we need special attention." "I didn't ask for anything." "But you took it, didn't you?" They walked away laughing. Elijah sat alone. His food had gone cold. The afternoon dragged on. More work, more pain, more hostile stares. That night, he laid on his cot. His leg felt hot, possibly infected. He had no way to check. No clean bandages, no antiseptic. He thought about Akiko, wondered if she was safe, if she was being punished further. He hoped she had forgotten him, moved on, protected herself. But deep down, he knew she had not, just as he could not forget her. In the darkness, someone threw something at his cot, a wadded paper. He opened it. "Go back to your Jap girlfriend," was scrawled in crude letters. He crumpled the note. He closed his eyes. One war had ended, but he was still fighting, still bleeding. And this time, there was no one to help him heal. Akiko sat in the corner of her small room. The other nurses had gone to the mess hall. She had claimed illness to avoid them. Truth was, she could not face their pity or their judgment. She no longer knew which was worse. Her supervisor had approached her that morning. "Mori-san, let the American matter go. It is finished." The words had been kind, but they felt like defeat. She held Elijah's letter in her hands. The envelope was worn from being carried. The edges were soft from her nervous fingers. She had written everything she could not say aloud. Her shame for believing lies. Her gratitude for his gentle patience. Her sorrow that the world would not let simple kindness exist. She had signed it simply, Akiko. Not Nurse Mori, just Akiko. Now the letter sat unsent. Useless. A confession with no audience. She stood and moved to the window. The hospital compound was dark, except for a few lights. Beyond the gates, the city glowed faintly. Yokohama was rebuilding slowly, but scars remained everywhere. She thought about going to Camp Mason, trying again to reach Elijah. But what good would it do? The guards would turn her away, or worse, report her. She had already lost her assignment, her reputation. If she pushed further, she would lose her position entirely. And then what? She had no family, no home. Nursing was all she had left. A knock sounded on the door. She jumped slightly. "Mori-san?" It was the head nurse. "A moment, please." Akiko opened the door. The older woman's face was lined with concern. "I heard you have not eaten." "I am not hungry." "You must maintain your strength." The head nurse paused. "I know this has been difficult." Akiko said nothing. There were no words adequate to the situation. The American soldier, Brooks. Was he kind to you? The question surprised her. She had expected judgment, not curiosity. Yes, he was very kind. The head nurse nodded slowly. "Then you did right, treating him well, despite everything." It does not feel right, not anymore. Right rarely feels good at first, only later, much later. The older woman handed her a wrapped rice ball. Eat, sleep. Tomorrow continues whether we are ready or not. She left before Akiko could respond. Akiko ate the rice ball mechanically. It had no taste. But she forced herself to finish it. She laid down on her cot. The letter remained in her pocket, pressed against her heart. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance. A storm was coming. She closed her eyes, but sleep remained elusive. In the darkness, she whispered his name. Elijah. No one heard. No one answered. 5 miles away, in a cold barracks, he was probably thinking the same thing, whispering her name to empty air. 2 people separated by distance, by rules, by hatred that was not their own, connected only by memory, and memory was a fragile thing to carry through winter. But it was all they had left. The explosion shattered the evening quiet. Akiko was walking back from the mess hall when the sound reached her, a deep boom that rattled windows across the compound. She stopped, her heart hammered. Other nurses ran outside. They pointed toward the southern sky. Orange flames lit the darkness. "Fire at Camp Mason," someone shouted. Akiko did not think. She ran. Her thin shoes slapped against the road. Her lungs burned. She ran faster than she had ever run before. The road stretched endlessly. Mud splashed her legs. Her breath came in gasps. Behind her, ambulance sirens wailed to life. The ambulances overtook her quickly. Red lights flashed in the darkness. They disappeared ahead. She kept running. After 20 minutes, her legs shook. Her chest felt crushed, but she could see the camp now. Flames rose from the northern section. Smoke billowed into the night sky. Military police swarmed the gates. Soldiers ran in chaotic patterns. Medics hauled stretchers toward waiting vehicles. Akiko pushed through the crowd. A guard grabbed her arm. "Stay back, restricted area. I am a nurse from Field Hospital 92. We have medics." She pulled free. "Is anyone injured from the segregated barracks?" The guard hesitated. Fuel depot exploded. Multiple casualties. Some colored troops were nearby. Her stomach dropped. "Names. Do you have names?" "Lady, I don't know. Check with the medics." She pushed past him. He did not follow. Too much chaos. Too many injured. One Japanese nurse was not his priority. She found the ambulances. Wounded soldiers filled them rapidly. White soldiers received immediate attention. Black soldiers waited longer. Even in crisis, segregation persisted. A medic emerged from an ambulance. His uniform was covered in blood and soot. "Please," Akiko grabbed his sleeve. "Private Elijah Brooks, is he among the wounded?" The medic pulled away. "I don't know every name. He was in the segregated section, recovering from a leg injury." "Then check the casualty staging area." He pointed toward a lit tent. "That way." Akiko ran. Her legs barely supported her. Her vision blurred at the edges. She reached the tent. Wounded men covered the ground. Some groaned. Some lay silent. Medics moved between them. Triage tags fluttered in the smoky air. She searched faces frantically. Too many, too dark, too much confusion. Then she saw him. Elijah lay on a stretcher near the tent's edge. His uniform was charred. His face was burned. His eyes were closed. She dropped to her knees beside him. "Elijah!" His eyes opened slightly. Recognition flickered. His lips moved, but no sound came. "I am here," she whispered. Tears streaked her face. "I am here." A medic appeared. "Ma'am, you need to move. We're loading for transport." "Where are you taking him?" "Back to Field Hospital 92. He needs surgery." "Then I am coming." "You can't ride in the ambulance." "Then I will run behind it." The medic stared at her. Something in her expression made him nod. "Get in, but stay out of the way." She climbed into the ambulance. Elijah's stretcher was loaded. 2 other wounded soldiers filled the remaining space. The doors slammed shut. The ambulance lurched forward. Through the small window, flames still lit the sky. Elijah's hand moved weakly. Akiko took it carefully. His fingers squeezed hers. He was alive. Barely, but alive. And she would fight to keep him that way. The ambulance stopped hard. The doors flew open. Medics swarmed. Stretchers were unloaded rapidly. Akiko jumped down. She followed Elijah's stretcher. Hands tried to push her back. She ignored them. The emergency tent was bright and loud. Doctors shouted orders. Nurses ran between patients. Blood pooled on the ground. Elijah was wheeled toward the corner, a segregated area, separate from the white casualties. A doctor examined him briefly. Burns, smoke inhalation, possible internal injuries. He needs surgery, Akiko said. The doctor looked at her. Who are you? His nurse, Akiko Mori. You're not assigned to him anymore. I am here now. Major Peterson appeared. His face was red. His uniform was disheveled. Nurse Mori, what are you doing here? Private Brooks requires immediate surgery. He'll be treated in order, like everyone else. He saved another soldier during the explosion. He deserves better than this corner. Peterson's eyes narrowed. How do you know that? Look at him. His uniform is burned, pulling someone from flames. Ask the witnesses. A white soldier on a nearby stretcher groaned. It's true. The Negro pulled Lieutenant Harris out, saved his life. Peterson turned. Harris was injured? Yes, sir. That colored boy dragged him away from the fire. Didn't have to, did it anyway. Silence fell across the tent. Doctors stopped moving. Nurses stared. Peterson looked at Elijah, then at Akiko. His expression was unreadable. Get him to surgery, he said finally. Now. Two nurses moved forward. They prepared to wheel Elijah away. Akiko followed. Peterson blocked her path. You will answer for this later. I accept that. He stepped aside. She continued after the stretcher. They reached the surgical preparation area. A surgeon waited. He looked at Elijah's burns and shook his head. This is bad. Very bad. Can you save him? Akiko asked. I can try. She helped transfer Elijah to the surgical table. His eyes opened again. He looked at her. His lips formed her name. You will survive, she told him firmly. You survived the war. You survived hatred. You will survive this. His hand reached for hers. She took it briefly. Then the surgeon pushed her back. We need to work. Wait outside. She stepped away reluctantly. Her hands were shaking. Her uniform was covered in soot and blood. Another nurse approached. One of the women who had shadowed her before. Her expression was different now, softer. He really saved Harris? Yes. Harris tormented him, called him names, reported him. I know. The nurse was quiet for a moment. That takes courage, real courage. Elijah has always had courage. The world just refused to see it. The surgical doors closed. Elijah disappeared behind them. Akiko stood frozen in the hallway. Other nurses gathered. Word spread quickly through the hospital. The Negro soldier who saved his tormentor. The Japanese nurse who defied orders to help him. Some whispered approval. Others looked away uncomfortably. But something had shifted. A crack in the wall of prejudice. Small but visible. Akiko pressed her back against the wall. She slid down until she sat on the floor. Her legs could not hold her anymore. She waited. There was nothing else to do. Just wait, and hope, and pray to gods she no longer believed in. For one small miracle, one life saved, one victory against the darkness. Akiko remained in the hallway outside surgery. Hours passed. Other nurses brought her tea. She did not drink it. She could not focus on anything except the closed doors. A junior medic emerged briefly. His face was grim. How much longer? Akiko asked. Hard to say. The burns are extensive. His lungs took in a lot of smoke. But he will live? The surgeon is doing everything he can. The medic disappeared back inside. Akiko leaned her head against the wall. Her eyes burned from exhaustion and smoke. Another stretcher passed by. Lieutenant Harris. His face was bandaged. His arm was in a sling. Two nurses attended him carefully. He saw Akiko. He stopped them. "You, Nurse Mori." She stood slowly. "Yes." "Brooks, is he in surgery?" Harris looked away. His jaw worked. Finally he spoke. "He pulled me out. I was trapped under debris. Flames everywhere. He could have left me. But he did not." "No, he didn't." Harris's voice dropped. "I called him names, reported him, made his life hell. I remember. Why did he save me?" Akiko met his eyes. "Because he is a better man than you ever were." Harris flinched, but he did not argue. He gestured for the nurses to continue. They wheeled him away. Akiko sat back down. The truth of her words settled over her. Elijah had shown more courage than most soldiers she had known, more humanity than most people she had met, and the world had punished him for it, over and over. The surgical doors opened. The surgeon emerged. His face was exhausted. Blood stained his apron. Akiko stood so fast, her vision spun. "Is he? He's alive, stable. The burns will scar. His lungs will take weeks to heal. But he survived." Her legs gave out. She caught herself on the wall. Relief flooded through her so powerfully she could barely breathe. "Can I see him?" "He's being moved to recovery. He'll be unconscious for hours. But yes, you can see him." The stretcher emerged. Elijah was heavily bandaged. His breathing was assisted by a mask, but his chest rose and fell steadily. Akiko walked beside the stretcher. They moved through the quiet hospital. Night had settled completely. The chaos from earlier had faded. They reached the recovery ward, a small room with 6 beds. Elijah was placed in the corner. A nurse began recording his vital signs. Akiko pulled a chair close to his bed. She sat down carefully. Her whole body ached with exhaustion. "You may stay until morning," the nurse said quietly. "After that, I don't know. Thank you." The nurse left. Akiko was alone with Elijah. She watched his chest rise and fall. Each breath was a small miracle. She thought about everything that had led to this moment. The propaganda, the fear, the first time she saw him, his gentle words, the growing connection they could not name. All the rules designed to keep them apart, all the hatred that tried to make kindness wrong. None of it had worked. They were still here, still fighting, still choosing humanity over fear. Outside the window, dawn was still hours away, but morning would come. It always did, and they would face it together, changed, scarred, but alive. For now, that was enough. Akiko woke with her head on Elijah's bed. Morning light streamed through the window. She sat up quickly. Her neck ached. Her back was stiff. Elijah still slept, but his breathing sounded stronger, more regular. The door opened. 2 other nurses entered. Behind them came the head nurse. "Mori-san, you stayed all night." "Yes. Major Peterson wants to see you. Immediately." Akiko stood slowly. She looked at Elijah one more time, then followed the head nurse into the corridor. Other staff members gathered near the nurses' station. They whispered as she passed. Some faces showed sympathy. Others showed curiosity. Word had spread about the explosion, about Elijah's heroism, about Akiko's defiance. The head nurse stopped. "What you did last night was against orders. I know. It was also brave. Perhaps foolish, but brave. I could not leave him." The older woman nodded. "Wait here. I will inform the major you have arrived." She disappeared into the administrative wing. Akiko stood alone in the hallway. Her uniform was filthy. Her hair had fallen from its pins. She looked like she had been through a battle. Perhaps she had. 2 orderlies approached. Between them walked a white soldier. His arm was bandaged. His face was bruised. She recognized him from the segregated barracks. "You're the nurse," he said, "the one who helped Brooks." "Yes, I was there, at the explosion, saw what happened." He paused. Brooks didn't hesitate. Fuel was everywhere, fire spreading fast. He heard Harris screaming. Just went in, pulled him out. Why are you telling me this? Because people should know. Harris got Brooks transferred. Got him sent to the hellhole, and Brooks still saved him. The soldier continued walking. His words echoed in the empty hallway. More witnesses appeared throughout the morning. Junior medics, a corporal who had seen the rescue, even a Japanese civilian who worked in the moto pool. Each told the same story. Elijah had risked his life to save someone who had tormented him. No hesitation, no second thought, pure instinct to help another human being. The head nurse returned. Major Peterson will see you now. Akiko followed her to the administrative office. Peterson sat behind his desk. His expression was complicated. Anger mixed with something else. Respect, perhaps, or shame. Nurse Mori, sit. She sat. You disobeyed direct orders last night. Left hospital grounds without authorization. Interfered with military operations. Yes, sir. He could be dismissed. Immediately. I understand. He was quiet for a long moment. However, multiple witnesses confirmed Private Brooks's heroic actions, including saving Lieutenant Harris, a man who had repeatedly mistreated him. Akiko waited. She did not know where this was leading. The story has spread throughout the camp, into town. Even higher command has taken notice. Peterson leaned forward. An investigation has been launched into the explosion, into the conditions at Camp Mason, into the treatment of Negro troops. Because of what happened? Because of what Brooks did, and because you refused to let him die in the corner. He stood. You're not dismissed, but you're on probation. One more violation and you're finished. What about Private Brooks? He'll remain here for proper recovery. Under proper medical care, will I be allowed to treat him? Peterson's jaw tightened. You will be his assigned nurse, again, but under supervision and with full documentation. Akiko's breath caught. Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank the fact that heroism is harder to ignore than prejudice. Sometimes. She was dismissed. She walked back to the recovery ward on shaking legs. Elijah was awake. His eyes were open. The breathing mask had been removed. He looked at her and tried to smile. It hurt his burned face, but he smiled anyway. She moved to his bedside. You are awake? Barely. His voice was rough from smoke damage. You stayed. Of course I stayed. They could have fired you. They still might. He reached for her hand. She took it carefully. His palm was bandaged, but his fingers squeezed gently. Thank you, he whispered, for everything. You saved a life last night. You are the hero. Didn't feel heroic, just felt necessary. She understood that. Sometimes courage was not about feeling brave. It was about doing what was right, despite the fear. Outside, morning continued. The hospital stirred to life. But in this small room, two people sat together, connected by something the world had tried to destroy, but could not, would not, because some things were stronger than hatred. Some bonds survived fire, and this was one of them. Akiko spent the day monitoring Elijah's condition. His vitals remained stable. His burns required careful attention, but he was improving hour by hour. Other nurses came and went. Some offered assistance, others simply watched. The atmosphere had changed. Hostility had softened into curiosity, then into something resembling respect. A colonel arrived at noon. He carried a notebook. His uniform was pressed and formal. Private Brooks? He asked. Elijah tried to sit up. Akiko helped him carefully. Yes, sir. I'm Colonel Morrison, investigating last night's explosion. He pulled out a pen. I need your statement. What happened? Elijah described the fuel depot, the sudden blast, the chaos that followed. Then he explained hearing someone screaming, seeing Lieutenant Harris trapped under burning debris. Why did you help him? The colonel asked. He needed help, But he had mistreated you, correct? Elijah was quiet for a moment. Yes, sir, he did. So why risk your life? Because leaving him to die would have made me the monster he thought I was. The colonel stopped writing. He looked at Elijah with something close to admiration. That's a better answer than most men could give. He turned to Akiko. And you violated orders to help him. Yes. Why? Because he is my patient, my responsibility. Even after being reassigned? Some responsibilities do not end with paperwork. The colonel closed his notebook. The explosion was caused by Lieutenant Harris. He ignored safety protocols, stored fuel improperly. His negligence nearly killed 20 men. Akiko and Elijah exchanged glances. Harris has been placed under formal inquiry. Court-martial is likely. The colonel paused. Multiple witnesses confirm Private Brooks's heroism. That will be included in the official report. What does that mean? Elijah asked. It means you'll be recognized. Properly. No more segregated treatment. No more inferior care. He left before they could respond. His words hung in the air. Akiko sat down slowly. Did he just promise equal treatment? Sounded that way. Don't know if it'll last. Perhaps it is a beginning. Maybe. The afternoon passed quietly. Akiko changed Elijah's bandages. The burns were healing. Slowly, painfully, but healing. An orderly delivered news. Mori-san, Private Brooks is being transferred. Once he's stable. Her heart sank. Where? Back to the United States, for continued recovery. The orders came from command. She looked at Elijah. His expression showed resignation. He had expected this. When? She asked. 2 days. Maybe 3. Depends on his condition. The orderly left. Silence filled the room. Akiko tried to find words, but there were none adequate. They had fought so hard to stay together, and now they would be separated anyway, not by hatred this time, by simple geography, by the reality that he had to return home. I will miss you, she said quietly. I'll miss you too. You will heal. You will return to your family. You will rebuild your life. Will I? His voice was bitter. Go back to Georgia? Back to segregation? Back to being treated as less than human? You are more than human. You are courageous, kind, strong. He looked away. Tears gathered in his eyes. And what about you? I will continue here, nursing, rebuilding. Alone? Perhaps, but changed. Better, because I knew you. They fell silent. Outside, clouds gathered. Rain was coming. Winter was almost here. 2 days, maybe 3. Then he would leave, forever. She would stand on a pier and watch his ship disappear, taking with it the person who had taught her to see clearly, to question everything, to choose humanity over fear. Some endings were necessary, but that did not make them easier. She stayed beside him as evening fell. Neither spoke much. Words felt insufficient. But their silence said everything that needed saying. Elijah woke properly for the first time since surgery. The morphine had worn off. His mind was clear. His body ached terribly. Akiko sat beside his bed reading. She looked exhausted, thin, like she had not slept properly in days. How long have you been here? He asked. She looked up. Most of the day. You should rest. So should you. He tried to laugh. It hurt his chest. Fair point. She set down her book. Are you in pain? Yes, but it's manageable. She checked his pulse, examined his bandages. Everything was routine, professional, but her hands lingered slightly. A small gesture that meant more than words. They told you I'm being transferred, he said. Yes. Back to the States. Georgia, probably. Will you be happy to go home? Home. The word felt strange. Don't know if Georgia ever felt that way. More like a cage I was born in. Perhaps it will be different now, after everything. Maybe. But I doubt it. He paused. What about you? What happens to you? I continue working. The war left many wounded, many sick. There is much to do. That's not what I meant. She met his eyes. I know. Did I mess up your life? Coming here, being your patient? No, you saved it. He blinked in surprise. How? Before you, I was a shell, following orders, believing lies I was taught, never questioning, never thinking. She folded her hands in her lap. You made me see, made me choose, made me human again. I didn't do anything special. You existed. That was enough. Silence settled between them, comfortable but heavy with unspoken feelings. An orderly appeared with Elijah's dinner. Thin soup, bread, weak tea. He ate slowly. Everything tasted like ash. Akiko watched him. Does it hurt to eat? Everything hurts. But I'm alive. That's more than I expected. You will heal. The burns will scar, but you will be whole again. Will I? Don't know if I was ever whole to begin with. You were. You are. The world tried to break you. It failed. He set down his spoon. You give me too much credit. I give you exactly what you deserve. The evening darkened outside. Lights flickered on throughout the hospital. Akiko prepared to leave for the night, but she hesitated. Tomorrow, I will walk with you, if you feel strong enough. I'd like that. We will go to the courtyard, to the shrine. One last time? Yes, one last time. She left quietly. Elijah watched her go. His chest ached, not from the burns, from something deeper, something that had no medical remedy. He laid back carefully. The ceiling was stained and cracked. The whole building showed its age, its wartime neglect. Everything was broken here. The country, the people, the systems. But some things had mended. Small things, important things. He had found humanity in an unexpected place, from an unexpected person. In the midst of destruction, something had grown. And tomorrow they would say goodbye to it, to each other, to the fragile connection that should never have existed, but did anyway, despite everything, because of everything. He closed his eyes. Sleep came slowly, but it came, and with it dreams of home. Wherever that might be, whatever that might mean, the transport ship waited at the pier, large, gray, functional. It would carry Elijah and 200 other soldiers back across the Pacific, back to an America that had not changed while they were gone. Akiko walked beside him. He moved slowly on crutches. His leg had healed enough for travel. His burns were covered with fresh bandages. Other nurses had come to say goodbye. A few soldiers nodded respect as he passed. The atmosphere was different than when he had arrived, less hostile, but still not welcoming. They reached the boarding area. Military police checked names against lists. Soldiers lined up. The process was efficient, cold. Elijah stopped before reaching the ramp. He turned to Akiko. They stood apart, proper distance. Rules still existed even at the end. I don't know what to say, he began. Then say nothing. Words are not necessary. They feel necessary. She looked at the ship, the other soldiers, the distant city. You gave me courage. You helped me see the lies I believed. You showed me that kindness still exists. You saved my life, more than once, not just my body, my spirit. We saved each other. He nodded. That was closer to truth than anything else. Will you write? She asked. Letters? If they let me, if they reach you. I will keep them, all of them, even if they never arrive. He almost laughed. Almost. That doesn't make sense. Little about this made sense, but it mattered anyway. The boarding whistle blew. Soldiers began moving up the ramp. Time was running short. I'll remember you, Elijah said. His voice broke slightly. Every day, for the rest of my life. I will remember you too. The man who taught me to question everything, to choose humanity, to be brave when brave felt impossible. They looked at each other. All the words unsaid. all the feelings forbidden, all the connection the world had tried to prevent. It existed anyway, in this moment, between them. Elijah reached into his pocket. He pulled out a small cloth, Japanese fabric, blue and white. "I kept this, from the hospital, something to remember." She pulled out the letter, the one she had never sent. "And I kept this, words I could never say aloud." "Will you send it now?" "No. Some things are better held close." The final whistle blew. The last call for boarding. Elijah adjusted his crutches. He moved toward the ramp. Each step was slow, deliberate. At the base of the ramp, he turned back. Akiko stood alone on the pier. Her uniform was neat. Her face was composed, but tears streaked her cheeks. He raised one hand to his chest, over his heart, a gesture that meant everything words could not say. She raised hers in return, the same gesture, the same meaning. Then he climbed the ramp, one step, then another, until he disappeared into the ship. Akiko remained on the pier. Other families said goodbye around her. Wives, children, mothers. She was alone in the crowd. The ship's horn bellowed, deep, loud, final. The vessel pulled away from the pier slowly. Water churned between the ship and the dock. The distance grew with each passing second. Akiko stood perfectly still. She did not wave. She simply watched, memorizing, holding this moment before it disappeared completely. On the ship's deck, a figure stood near the railing. Even from distance, she knew it was him. He did not wave either. He simply stood, watching her the same way she watched him. The ship moved farther into the bay. The figure grew smaller, then smaller still, until she could no longer distinguish him from the others. Until the ship itself became just a shape on the horizon, until it vanished completely, taking him away forever. Akiko stood alone on the pier long after the ship disappeared. The morning sun climbed higher. The bay sparkled with reflected light. It was beautiful, cruel, indifferent. Around her, the port returned to normal operations. Workers loaded cargo. Fishermen prepared nets. Life continued as if nothing significant had happened. But something significant had happened. Something that would echo forward, changing everything it touched. She reached into her pocket. The letter was still there, pressed against her heart. She pulled it out, looked at it one final time. Then she folded it carefully. She would keep it, not as something to send, but as proof. Proof that two people had chosen kindness when the world demanded hatred, had chosen connection when rules demanded separation. Proof that humanity could survive anything, if people were brave enough to hold on to it. She turned from the bay. Yokohama stretched behind her, broken but rebuilding, scarred but healing. The war had ended, but its aftermath continued. She would continue too, nursing the wounded, helping rebuild what had been destroyed, carrying forward the lessons Elijah had taught her. Question everything. Choose humanity. Be brave, even when brave felt impossible. These were not small lessons. They were revolutionary. In a world built on prejudice and fear, they were weapons against darkness. She walked away from the pier. Her steps were steady. Her back was straight. Tears still wet her cheeks, but she did not wipe them away. They were earned, honest, real. Japanese civilians passed by. Some stared, some whispered. The nurse who had defied orders, who had cared for the enemy, who had chosen wrong so many times it became right. She ignored their stares. Their whispers meant nothing anymore. At the edge of the port, she paused. She looked back one final time. The bay stretched empty. No ships returning. No figures on distant decks. Just water, sky, distance. But somewhere across that water, Elijah was traveling home, carrying the same lessons, the same scars, the same quiet revolution. Two people separated by an ocean, by rules, by systems designed to keep them apart, but connected forever by the choice they had made, to see each other, to help each other, to be human when humanity was forbidden. A Japanese nurse had treated her first Black American patient after the war. What happened next had changed them both, forever. Not through grand gestures, not through dramatic proclamations, but through simple kindness. Through choosing right over easy, through standing firm when the whole world pushed them to fall. The war had ended in August, but peace did not arrive with surrender. Peace came one person at a time, one choice at a time, one moment of courage at a time. Akiko understood that now. She would carry it forward, into whatever came next. She walked into the city, into the rebuilding, into the future. Alone but not empty, changed but not broken, carrying a letter in her pocket and a promise in her heart. To live differently, to choose better, to be the person Elijah had helped her become. The sun continued rising. Morning spread across Yokohama, across Japan, across a world still learning to heal. And in that morning light, one nurse walked forward, steady, sure, unafraid, ready to rebuild a world that desperately needed rebuilding. One patient at a time, one kind choice at a time, one act of quiet courage at a time. The story had ended, but the lesson would continue. Forever. Because some stories do not finish when people part. They live on, in every choice made afterward, in every kindness offered. In every moment when someone chooses humanity over hate. A Japanese nurse treated her first Black American patient after the war. And what happened next changed them both, forever.